कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणस्पत आनः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामभित्रयवतु गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम् भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Om Shri Sai Ram. Offering our collective pranams at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Lord, Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba Varu. Esteemed Vice-Chancellor Sir, Professor Sanjeevi Sir, Controller of Examinations, Sri Sanjay Sani Sir, elders, guests, colleagues and dearest students who have joined us virtually for this session. We begin this session with a small announcement. It is with a very heart I wish to announce that revered Miss Sudha Chakravarti, wife of our esteemed Chancellor Shri K. Chakravarti Sir, has merged at the lotus feet of Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba last night at about 1:30 a.m. She was a very loving and kind soul and was indeed a motherly figure to a lot of alumni, a lot of students of SIHL. In fact, as I was just browsing through, since I'm also a member of this alumni group, so there are a lot of memories being expressed and shared by a lot of alumni, the love and affection that she had for most of the students. And whenever Chakravarti sir as the registrar would scold the students, then she would console the students saying that it's okay, you don't need to scold them, we need to talk to them lovingly. So a lot of personal anecdotes, personal experiences were shared by these students. So it only shows her motherly concern and love for all the students, and many students have experienced the same and expressed the same in the group. We pray Bhagwan that he bless this soul with everlasting bliss and give their family the strength to tide over through this difficult phase. I request you that we observe a 2-minute silence and pray for the departed soul. We all rise for a 2-minute silence. Sairam, you may be seated. It's my proud privilege and an honor to introduce the speaker for today's moral class. Today we have our Vice-Chancellor, Professor C.B. Sanjeevi, addressing us this morning. Sir has assumed the chair as the 11th Vice-Chancellor of Satyam Institute of Higher Learning on 23rd November 2019. The topic that he has chosen to address us is the Nobel Prize in Medicine. I don't think we can find a better person to share insights on this topic, since Professor Sanjeevi has been at Karolinska Institute, a medical university in Stockholm, Sweden since 1989. It must be mentioned that Karolinska Institute is known for selecting and awarding Nobel Prizes for physiology and medicine. I would fail my duty if I do not mention that Professor Sanjeevi has won several awards, and the most notable one being the Pravasiya Bharatiya Samman Award from the Government of India for his outstanding work in medicine. The Nobel Prize is a celebration of excellence, and it is considered the most prestigious award in the world in various fields. It is awarded to those who during the preceding year shall have conferred the greatest benefit on mankind. The timing of this talk is appropriate because this year's Nobel Prize announcements will take place in the forthcoming week from 4th to 11th October 2021, starting with medicine, followed by physics, chemistry, literature, peace, and economics. This talk is a prelude as well as an insider's perspective to this event. On a personal note, I should mention that during various interactions that the Vice-Chancellor had with the faculty and also the research scholars, he always motivates us and tells us that the work we do should turn out to be worth of a Nobel Prize. Bhagwan also expects that we pursue excellence in all our endeavors, be it small or big. I am sure, sir, that the day isn't far away when we make our Bhagwan happy and proud with our contribution to this mankind. With these few words, I invite Professor Sanjeevi sir to come onto the dais and share his thoughts on this topic Nobel Prize in Medicine. Thank you very much. Sai Ram.
Sairam everybody. My humble pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagwan. And I thank our director, Dr. Raghavendra Raju, for a nice introduction. And I also thank Raghavendra Raju for arranging this talk as a moral class for our students, which should have taken place at 9 o'clock in the morning. For some reason, we moved it to 10:45 so that we could get more people. And unfortunately, the demise of Srimati Chakravarti has created some changes that we had to do. So some of the people whom we wanted could not come. But I'm glad that all our students are watching this from home, Prashant Nilayam students. So this has been a talk that I've been wanting to give for quite some time. And I was just trying to figure out what will be the best timing. So we feel that this is the best timing. And let's see what stories I can share with you. So I'll start with Alfred Nobel, the man and his prize. So we need to know a little bit more about Alfred Nobel before we actually know about the prize. So this is the main entrance of the Karolinska Institute. And once you walk through the entrance, immediately to the left side is the building called Nobel Forum that I'll show in a minute. And this, on the right hand side, if you turn, you will see a building like this called Aula Medica. And this is the building where the Nobel lectures are held. And this building was constructed with a 300 million kroner donation from a very big industrialist called H&M, which is a clothing company. As you can see, the end of the building is leaning, and they claim that this leaning is much greater than that of the Tower of Pisa. But this is an important structure that at Karolinska Institute, and you just get in through this to listen to the Nobel lectures whenever it's held, which is usually on December 7 every year. So as you enter here, immediately to the left is the building called Nobel Forum. And this building has ground floor and first floor, as you can see. But what you cannot see is it is 3 floors below the ground. That is where the Nobel archives are held, and all the nominations and every communication connected with Nobel Prize in Medicine is stored here. Only thing is that we cannot know anything about the archives of all nominations held in the last 50 years. Beyond that, we can go and seek with a request to the Secretary of the Nobel Prize Committee to get access to those nomination papers so that you can understand what it's all about. So I have done some research there on some of the nominations myself, and I can share some of those things with you a little later. On this side of the building is the foyer, with the open area where we have some dinners or lunches or whatever whenever we have it. But please remember, during summer time, we will have light until 11:30 p.m. So this is the foyer. At the end of the foyer, you see a doorway to which that doorway leads to a hall where the Nobel Prizes are announced, and that's where it's going to be announced on 4th of October, Monday, coming the next week, 1 week from now. But there is a staircase, and if you take the staircase, you come to the first floor where the Nobel Secretary's office is located. And they have a very big hall called Assembly Hall, which has a round table that can seat 40 people around the table. And this is where all the decisions are taken regarding the Nobel Prize. And all the reviews that happen in this particular room. Just outside the Karolinska Institute, somewhere here, is where the bust of Alfred Nobel is located. So, this is the normal cycle for the Nobel Prize nomination until the prize is announced. So, around this time, September, October is when the nomination papers are all going to be sent to a variety of people who are predominantly heads of institutions all over the world. Something like 3,000 nomination papers are sent out. And this year we will get one for SSSIHL also. So these nomination papers are the ones that you need to use in order to make the nomination. And the deadline for nomination is 31st of January. Please remember this date because it has a lot of implications on some of the stories I am going to tell. So after the nomination is closes for everybody, but the nomination is still open until the end of February for people who have already won the Nobel Prize. And if somebody who has won the Nobel Prize makes the nomination, that gets little bit extra weightage because every nomination goes to 2 people for review, just like your research publication. If a Nobel Prize winner makes the nomination, it will go to only 1 person for review because we assume that the Nobel laureate has done the review himself to make a recommendation. So the Nobel laureates have time until February 28 to make their nominations. But the process of rejection of incomplete nominations happens in the month of March, and the seriousness with which the nominations are reviewed happen during the month of April, May and June, during which time there may be several meetings. By the time September comes, which is now, they would have boiled down to few candidates or few ideas, and there may be few candidates behind each ideas. And finally, on the Friday before the first Monday of the October, the committee meets to decide who should get the prize. If there are some disagreements or if there are different views on who should get the prize, if there are 2 different ideas on the table, very rarely they meet on Monday morning before the announcement is taking place. But by Friday evening, most of the decisions should have happened. So that is with regards to the first week of October, and from the time the Nobel Prize is announced until the Nobel Prize is given, which is always on 10th of December, there is a lot of activity taking place. From the 1st of December, all the Nobel laureates will arrive in Stockholm, and all the process of honoring them, training them, because when they go to receive the prize from the king, they need to be trained how to walk to the king, how to get back to their chair and things like that. But always on September 7th, the Nobel Prize lecture for medicine will be held at Karolinska Institute. And on 8th of December, we will have in the mornings physics lecture, Nobel Prize for lecture in physics, then chemistry, then literature and economics. The Peace Prize, of course, is given in Norway, and it is decided by the Norwegian Nobel Committee. And the Nobel Prize ceremony and the Nobel lecture for the Peace Prize will be held in Oslo every year. So that is little different. How it happens that Oslo, Norway decides to get the Peace Prize, I will share it with you later. So this is the cycle by which the prize cycle works. So the Nobel Forum, that is where the prize is announced. His name is Hans Jornvall. He was the secretary of the Nobel Prize at the year 2005 when they are announcing the prize going to Barry Marshall and Robin Warren for his discovery of Helicobacter pylori and its role in gastritis and peptic ulcer. I will come back to this particular Nobel Prize and Nobel laureate little later. But the announcement happens usually around 9:30 or 10 or 11. The time is not actually very fixed because around 9:30 a.m. is when the secretary of the committee will call the winning candidates and announce the prize. And many times when the prize is given to American people, it is probably middle of the night if it is East Coast time, probably 3 o'clock in the morning, or it will be in the West Coast time, it will be 12 o'clock midnight. So you always have to wake up the Americans from their bed, and sometimes it's a very difficult task to do that. So to talk about Alfred Nobel, this is the house in Stockholm where he was born, and they still have the house in 1833. and he was born to Emmanuel Nobel and Henrietta Nobel. Emmanuel Nobel comes from a Nobel family, and he is also an inventor and discoverer. He is a very smart person at that age, at that time. And he was the one who invented the mines that were used to protect St. Petersburg during those war times. So Alfred Nobel has a very strong lineage in terms of his inquisitiveness and discovery prone activity. But if you look at this is the one that changed the way Alfred Nobel could do things, the nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin was discovered by Ascanio Sobrero in 1847. But what happened subsequently was Alfred Nobel was the one who made the dynamite using nitroglycerin, but having mixed at certain concentration with Kiesel gold. So this is the patent application that he made, that for which he was awarded the patent in 1863. So you can imagine at 1863 they are going after their patents for their discovery, and sometimes even in 2021 we are not doing that. Okay, so this is very important for him to do that, because that is the time, that is the patent that got him all the wealth. At that time he was probably the richest man in the world. At current valuation, he will be probably the #1 person in the world who is the richest. So nitroglycerin and dynamite has enormous applications, which you all know, and it could be used for good things and also bad things. Okay, the bad things really left a mark on Alfred Nobel's mind, because people are starting to use it to blast off people, blast off vehicles, doing it for destruction. And he was very disturbed because it is being used for such purposes. But it of course has got a lot of useful use. If you want to break a rock, if you want to break a mountain, you want to put a pathway, you want to give a tunnel, to construct a highway through the tunnel, all that, it has enormous value and usefulness. And what he did was, in 1896 he passed away. In 1895 he wrote a will, and this is the will that is the mantra for deciding and giving the Nobel Prize for Medicine. So this is the most legal document by which we will refer to on any decisions that is made. So the will is the basis for the Alfred Nobel lecture, and you can see this is how he is, and this is the medal that they give to all the laureates when they win the prize, and you can see of course the resemblance. But for the benefit of all those people who are here, who may not be able to see this medal, I have got a replica for you. What I can do is I can request Raghavendra Raju to either circulate, or he will keep it here, and any of you can come and have a look at the medal whenever you want to. Or I can even leave it with Raju later, that he can have it for you to see at any time. So what does the will say? In no case may a prize be divided between more than 3 people. It's okay to give it to 1, it's okay to give it to 2, but 3 is the maximum. So when you have a prize, you cannot divide it by 3. Either you can divide it equally, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, or the prize committee also decides one person gets half the prize, the other 2% get quarter and quarter. Okay, there are so many different combinations by which they decide and award the prize. But more than the money that you get as a prize, it's the honor that is invaluable. You can't put a price tag on honor. Over a period of time, it had gained such honor because they are going and picking the best people in that particular discipline to award the prize. So it should not be given to more than 3 people at a time, and it should be in the preceding year. So what is preceding year? This has been a matter of dispute. Could it be in the last 12 months from the time you give the award, or it could be even years before that? And it's pretty hard for us to evaluate in the last 1 year and arrive at the conclusion that this particular discovery should get the prize. So it was interpreted that any award in the preceding years for the discovery could be given. But the most important is the award is given to someone who has made an invention or a discovery. If you have repeated somebody else's work, you don't qualify for it. But if you have made a publication of your work, which is very important, and if that publication is based on theoretical principles, until it is proved, that discovery or invention will not get the recognition that it should get. For instance, few years ago, Paul Higgs got the prize for discovery of what is called as God's particle, which is boson. And only recently, when the CERN accelerator was able to identify the existence of God's matter or God's particle, then it became real that whatever he did in 1959 was recognized and proven, and then he got the prize for physics. So sometimes you may have to wait for quite a long time before the prize is awarded to the winner. So the time between the nomination and the award of the prize is often and correctly considerable. So 50 years ago, 60 years ago, the time from the time you make the discovery until the award was maybe 5 years, 10 years. But now, because there are so many discoveries, you may have to wait at least 20 to 30 years from the time the discovery was made until the prize is given. And there has been some dispute why women are not getting the prize. The reason is, if you look at those people, women in science, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, there were not many women. So the choice of candidates, there is no discrimination here. Now there are a lot more women in science, a lot of them are making big discoveries. Now you can see as we go forward, more and more women are getting the Nobel Prize. So the time it takes from the invention until the award of prize, it's getting longer and longer actually. But for the medicine prize, Alfred Nobel said that it should be for physiology or medicine, because in 1985, we did not even understand many of our body functions. Okay, first we need to understand how the body normally works. And even now we are trying to discover new pathways, new proteins and things like that. That's been existing with us, but we never knew what it was doing. So it was for physiology and medicine, and when in 1985 he asked the Karolinska Institute whether they will award the Nobel Prize, because he wanted to give only one prize. And Karolinska Institute took several years to decide, should we give this prize? Will it bring us disrepute? And all kinds of questions. Now, actual reality, it is the opposite. There is enormous name that Karolinska Institute gets because of the Nobel Prize. And they had 20 professors at that time, and they could not decide that the Karolinska Institute should take up the responsibility of selecting and award the prize. So Alfred Nobel decided to give several prizes. Okay, now I will get peace prize, physics prize, chemistry prize, as well as literature prize. But economics was not a prize that Alfred Nobel decided to give in his will. So when you look at the physiology of medicine, the person who was responsible for selecting and awarding the Nobel Prize for medicine was Axel Key, who was responsible in making these prizes available through decisions at Karolinska Institute. When you become the secretary of the Nobel Prize Committee, there is no time span left. Until you retire, until you reach the age of 65, you can continue to be the secretary. So for instance, this gentleman, Johannes Johansson, was the chair of the Nobel Prize Committee from 1818 to 26, and Göran Liljestrand, who is the secretary of the committee from 1918 to 1960. So he is probably the guy who has been in the committee chair for a very long time. So lots of interesting decisions, sometimes controversial, had also taken place. So the will is the most important document through which a decision is made on how the prize should be given. So how is it given? The basic organization is Nobel Foundation, and the Nobel Foundation has got a secretary general, and all the money that Nobel had bequeathed for the Nobel Prize are all under the control of the Nobel Foundation. So it has a director, it has several other people, board of management, board of directors, etc. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, in Swedish it's called Kungliga Vetenskapsakademien, decides a physics prize, chemistry prize and economy prize. And this is the Royal Science Academy, which is not far away from the Stockholm University. whereas the physiology or medicine prize is decided at the Karolinska Institute in the Nobel Forum that we just saw the pictures. Whereas if you look at the literature prize, we have a Swedish literary society in the city center that decides the literature prize. And if you look at the Norwegian Nobel Committee in Oslo, where they are functioning from this building, decides the peace prize, and Norwegian Nobel Committee is constituted by members of the Norwegian Parliament. So it's predominantly politicians who are deciding the prize. That's where it is becoming much more controversial in many of the decisions that they are taking. But one might wonder, if I want to revisit the question of women in science, you will see for many of these prizes, the chairman of the Nobel Prize Committee are women. So you might want to answer the question, is women not choosing women for the prize? So there is no such particular bias. The best candidate gets the prize. So it is given for the greatest benefit of humankind. So you might have a discovery, but the discovery should show benefit for humankind. That should become visible. So it takes some time before that becomes visible. So there is a gap from the time you make the discovery until the award is given. So this is the first prize award ceremony in 1901 that was held in Stockholm. And you can see how people are dressed up. And this is how the traditional dressing is needed when you are coming and participating in an event hosted by the King of Sweden. So this is the Nobel diploma. That's how it looks like, with an insignia of the Alfred Nobel and a citation that is given here. And this particular diploma is given to Susumu Tonigawa for discovery of genetics of antibody formation, which is one of the major discoveries, and this was given in 1987 to Susumu Tonigawa. But many of you who are in the physics and many of you who have listened to Bhagwan giving a talk at the last convocation, you will see this important guy, Erwin Schrödinger. He received the prize in 1913. So it was 1931, he won the prize, and you know the famous Schrödinger's experiment, and you would be surprised that Bhagwan was talking about it in detail in his convocation address last year. So this is the important discovery that was made, the prize was given in 1923 for discovery of insulin to Frederick Banting and John McLeod. And Banting had a student by name Charles Best. He was doing PhD under Banting, and Charles Best was not included in the prize, and there was a big controversy. The reason why he did not get the prize is because he was not doing things on his own, but was doing things on the guidance of Banting. So I had gone and done some digging up of the archives, and I had come out with a document or made an article based on my knowledge and access to the nominations that held, nomination papers that were held, and I had shared the document with Raju. That I wrote for the Nobel Centennial, 100 years of Nobel Prize, and you can see what it all says. But this is the only Nobel Prize that was given within 1 year of the discovery. So the discovery of insulin happened in 1922, the nomination and the prize happened in 1923, and there is a fantastic story behind. The story was, few years earlier, a guy called Alfred Krug won the chemistry prize, and his wife developed diabetes. Okay, he was searching throughout the world to find a way to keep his wife live longer. And he was told that there is, when he visited America, he was told that he went to Joslyn's hospital, it's the famous diabetes hospital in the world. So Joslyn, who was sitting next to Alfred Krug, told him, there is somebody in Toronto you should go and see, who has got something that will help your mother, or help your wife. And he went to Toronto. At that time, of course, flying was not such a possible thing. So in Toronto, he visited Banting's lab and had a chat. And when Banting gave the details of the insulin, he brought that to Denmark. Alfred Krug is from Denmark. And Alfred Krug gave those things to a particular guy in Denmark who was the father of Novo Nordisk. That's how the insulin started to be made by Novo Nordisk in the world. So Alfred Krug, because of all this knowledge that he has got, he nominated Benting and MacLeod. And since he nominated it, the review process was little lesser and the candidate got the prize. Until 1944, Krug's wife was receiving insulin, nobody knew, and she was perfectly all right with her diabetes. So it goes to show that sometimes you might make a discovery. You need to meet somebody in your life in order to carry your discovery, taking forward to the right place. So your stars will have to be in the right horizon in order to get you there. How do we announce the prize? Nowadays, it's easy for us to go and give a telephone call. Even that is becoming harder. You can imagine how it will be in 1915. They had to announce the Nobel Prize to the candidate in the form of a telegram. And this guy received his news through a telegram from Sweden that says for his work on the physiology and pathology of the vestibular apparatus, which is giving you the stability while walking in the ear. And here come some of the stories that I wanted to share with you. So I went to, this was the prize that was given in 1990. So I was little new at the Karolinska Institute and I was fascinated by all these things. So I went and sat in the Nobel lecture that both these people were giving, and he got the Nobel Prize for the person who was the first person to do the kidney transplantation. And he was the first person to do the bone marrow transplantation. He is from Seattle and this guy is from Boston. But the problem is when he did all the work on renal transplantation in the dogs, everything was successful. He got all the documentation correct and he was ready to do the kidney transplantation in humans. So he went and spoke to his boss, who was the chief of surgical staff, and asked him permission to do a renal transplantation. So you need a donor kidney and you need a recipient who is the patient. And this guy took 6 months to make a decision because he wasn't sure whether this Joseph Murray is doing the right decision, whether the hospital will come to great disrepute, and he could not make up his mind. This is where the leadership comes. Finally, the chief of medical staff, the chief of surgical staff gave him permission, go ahead and do the renal transplantation. And the renal transplantation was successful. When the prize was announced in October 1990, the person who received the renal transplantation was still alive. Just 3 weeks before he came to Stockholm to receive the prize, that person died. So he could not bring that person to the committee. But what happened during his talk was when he was giving the Nobel Prize lecture, and I was in the audience, he just paused for a minute. Then he called out a particular gentleman's name and asked him to, can you stand up? And this guy who is 88 years old at that time just couldn't understand. So he stood up. And Joseph Murray said, he is the chief of surgical staff who gave me the permission. If he would not have given me the permission at that time, I won't be standing in front of you and talking. And there was absolute silence in the hall. And that old man started crying. Because the decision he took at that particular time was a path-breaking decision in the world. You can imagine how easy it is to do kidney transplantation. Of course, if he had not taken the decision, what would have happened is somebody else would have done the renal transplantation some years later. Somebody else would have gone and taken the credit. So discoveries will happen, but the timing is important. And he was extremely grateful to that particular leader. So when I always talk about this, I need to tell everybody that the leadership is very important. You need to encourage people. You need to support people. You should never ever take an obstructive road to prevent somebody from coming up or prevent somebody from making a discovery. This is so important because you never know who is the winning horse and who is not. So you should treat people in the way that will benefit society, benefit medicine. That should be the more focus, not because you didn't wear a shirt properly or you didn't comb your hair properly. Those criteria should never be applied. And both these guys were fantastic clinical medicine discoveries. Okay. Then of course Stanley Prusner. Please remember, whenever you make a discovery, don't think the world will accept it. Stanley Prusner was the guy who discovered virions. Virions are small virus particles. And nobody took note of his discovery seriously. And there are a lot of examples that I can share. So he did not share the prize with anybody. How did prions came in the limelight? Because something like in the beginning of 90s, there was a wave of deaths in Europe. And this was called as mad cow disease. And the mad cow disease was spreading based on what people were eating as a beef. But please remember, cows or cattle, they are vegetarian. Okay? But all these greedy people who were having these farms were feeding these cows with meat as powder so that the protein content will be much richer. And an infected cow, if you make meat of it and give it to other cows to eat, and the cows don't know what they're eating, and there is a spread of prions, and that is the one, there is a entry to the human chain that caused the mad cow disease, and many people were dying. So this becomes very important. And once the mad cow disease started spreading, prions became top center of attraction, and Stanley Prusner got the Nobel Prize for discovery of prions. So you are ridiculed for your discovery, and suddenly you are the darling of the world, you know. These two guys, Peter Mansfield and Paul Lauterbur, were the ones who won the prize for discovering CT scan, okay, and MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. And of course, this guy is from the United States. When we tried to call him, he would not pick up the phone, okay. And what happened was that whenever we tried to call him, his wife was picking up the phone in the middle of the night. And he said, what rubbish are you talking? She thought it was a spam call and put the phone down. Okay. Second time, the wife again picked up the phone. And again, they could not get past the wife because she did not think that this was a genuine call. Then they called this guy. He's from London. It's just 1 hour time difference from Stockholm. So he was very happy to receive the news. He wanted to know who is the one who is getting it, and he was very happy that this guy deserved the prize. The third time, after talking to him, they went back to the guy, and we have to be a little rude, saying that, go get your husband. Okay. When she got the husband online, then we told him that he won the prize. So sometimes it's not easy to communicate to people about the prize. And this is a story. This is a phenomenal story. And Barry Marshall and Robin Warren were given the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 2005 for the discovery of bacterium Helicobacter pylori and its role in gastritis. The prize was given in 2005. Somewhere in the 80s was a time when Barry Marshall discovered that the peptic ulcer or the gastric ulcer that you all know, which you are all attributing it to stress, is actually caused by a bacteria called Helicobacter pylori. He demonstrated it everything. There is something called Koch's postulates. You'll have to go through the Koch's postulates. You'll have to isolate the bacteria, give it and see whether the same kind of disease is coming up after you have done this. So that you need to know this is the bacteria that is causing. And at that time, endoscopy was not such a available thing, you know. It has a rigid endoscope. It's a big iron tube that you have to put it in the stomach. It's most difficult to navigate. Everybody ridiculed it. Everybody thought he's crazy. Everybody said it's the stress that's causing peptic ulcer. Why is this guy crazily talking about something else? You know what he did? He was so frustrated. He took the broth in which the Helicobacter pylori was growing. And out of frustration, he drank it. And he became very sick. And they put an endoscope to show that all the lesions of peptic ulcer was present because of Helicobacter pylori. Then people started believing it with certain hesitation and certain reservation. So there is something called as I'll show you in the last slide. I don't want to tell now. So they won the prize, and it was such a major discovery because for a scientist, you make a discovery. Nobody thinks you are good. Nobody thinks you have done a great thing. People ridicule you and abuse you. That's not how you start your scientific career. But you have to go through this because you are the first person in the world to tell that information or tell that story. I'm just going to show a couple of slides just to tell you anybody can get the Nobel Prize. Mario Capecci won the Nobel Prize in 2007 for the discovery of principles of introducing specific gene modification in mice by the use of embryonic stem cells. And he was born in Italy. And when he received the prize, he was at Lake City in Utah. But if you go back in history and see, who is he? During this time of Second World War, Mussolini was in Italy ruling and he was collaborating with Adolf Hitler. Anybody who were saying things against Mussolini, they were all imprisoned. So Capecci's father was imprisoned. The mother didn't know where he was imprisoned. So mother was doing a secret meetings with people who are rebels. And the mother was also arrested and taken to prison. So the mother left Capecci, who was 5 years old, with a friend and gave some money to take care of him. And she could not come out of the prison for more than a year. After 10 months, the friend ran out of the money and could not keep Capecci at home. So he was let go. And he was wandering the streets, begging, and he was a part of some of the gangs on the streets. And just imagine, what could his life have been if he got lost? After his mother was released, it took quite some time, 6 months, 10 months for her to find his boy. And his mother's brother was in America at that time. So she took the ship and went to America. That's where he started his life. So next time you see a beggar, don't disrespect him. Don't say anything bad about him. He was a street child and he was able to get the Nobel Prize. And Rolf Steinman. Rolf Steinman is a very important person. I met him, a great scientist. I even invited him for a meeting in India in 2001. He could not come. Rolf Steinman was doing a lot of research on dendritic cell, and he had manipulated the dendritic cell to go and attack and kill the cancer cells. That was a major discovery at that time. So he was nominated several times, and when he's on the year 2011, he was selected to be selected to receive the Nobel Prize for Medicine, and he was one of the 2 people who shared the prize. But we tried to call him on Monday morning at 9:30. No answer. Several times, no answer. Then what we do? We called the Vice-Chancellor of the Rockefeller University, where he was affiliated at that time. And Rockefeller University Vice-Chancellor was delighted because it is still morning. It's 9:30 in Sweden, 3:30 in the morning. We are waking the Vice-Chancellor of Rockefeller University and telling, oh, it's wonderful. We are very happy to hear our faculty has won the prize. And he said, I will reach out to the family. So he had the telephone number of Rolf Steinman's daughter. She is not picking up the phone. So the decision is being announced at 3:30 local East Coast time. Rockefeller is in New York. That night, 3 hours ago, at 12 midnight, he had passed away. So if only he had lived for 3 more hours, he could have died knowing that he had won the Nobel Prize. Look at the way his fortune is. He has been working hard. He has been on the nomination for so many times, but when the prize was announced, just by 3 hours, he missed it. And you can imagine the kind of grief the family will have. They all are saying, if only he had lived for a few more hours, he would have known that he had won the Nobel Prize. So that year, when we had the Nobel lecture, his postdoc from his lab came and gave the Nobel lecture, and his wife came and received the prize. So you can have such tragedies also happen, and these are all rare things. And this is a very funny incident. In 1989, that was 7th of December, I arrived in Sweden on December 4th, 1989. So it's all excitement for me. I wanted to go and listen to my first ever Nobel lecture. So it was given to Michael Bishop, and Harold Warmus. Harold Warmus later became the director of the National Institute of Health in the United States. The story is Jon Lindstein was the secretary of the Nobel Prize Committee, and they decided that these two guys should win the prize. And they had a telephone number for Michael Bishop, and they called him. Again, it was middle of the night, but this telephone number was located at the east coast of the United States. And they left a message in the answering machine. Michael, you have won the Nobel Prize for medicine. Please get back to us. And he left his telephone number on the message. Okay. Now they called Harold Warmus and told him, and Harold Warmus is in San Francisco, it's on the opposite side, other side of the coast. Harold Warmus was very happy to receive the news that he has won the prize, and he was very curious, is he sharing the prize with anybody? Yes, I'm sharing the prize with Michael Bishop, is was told. Oh, that's wonderful, Michael Bishop is just with me. Oh my God, he's in San Francisco. We called him in East Coast, somewhere near Washington. What had happened was they called the wrong Michael Bishop. Okay, that wrong Michael Bishop was also invited for the Nobel lecture and Nobel Prize function. And in those days, when you leave a message in the answering machine, all the messages are recorded in a tape. If you remember those words, and you don't see that nowadays. He had carried the tape to tell the secretary of the committee, look, I have your voice, I won the Nobel Prize. But the one funny thing was, after he knew that the right Michael Bishop is in the west coast of the United States, he called back that number and said, left a message, you did not get the prize. The earlier message ignored. But that also he added in the tape. So such anecdotal things can also happen. So if you receive some call, please remember that there might be somebody there with your name somewhere else and you got the call wrong. So again, if you look at this lady, Frances Arnold, who won the Nobel Prize in chemistry, she was driving taxi. So don't insult a taxi driver because she won the Nobel Prize, because sometime in some part of your career you might be doing something and there is no age limit when you should get the prize. And for discovering lithium ion batteries, good enough, got the prize when he was 97 years old. Just compare Ralph Steinman, who could not live 3 months, 3 hours more to know the prize. This person is living 97 years in order to get the award announcement, and he is 99 and is still going to the University of Arizona at this age. Okay, so the time will come when you should get the prize, or the time will come when you will get the prize and you will not be there to receive it. So in terms of Ralph Steinman, there was a lot of hue and cry. You are giving a prize to a dead man. You are not supposed to do that. According to Alfred Nobel Will, was the big discussions on the newspapers. But what they came out and said was, on Friday evening, previous Friday evening, we had decided that he will get the prize and we had signed off the papers. At that time he was alive. So Ralph Steinman will receive the prize. That was the final decision from the committee. So you have to face all these things. So these are some of the Indian Nobel Prize winners. I do not know how many of them are Indian. Maybe Tagore and Raman are probably the only Indian. All of them had Indian origin, but they never had, maybe Kailash Satyarthi was an Indian, which means you are from India and you hold an Indian passport. All these people had different citizenships. But this is our score, 9 people who won the Nobel Prize. So what does it mean? What can we learn from the history of the Nobel Prize? Knowledge and society. So we should chase new knowledge. Very important. Societies that have invested in research-based knowledge have prospered. That's how America became popular, because they put a lot of effort in industrialization early. To achieve such a knowledge, it should not be looked upon as a cost, but as an investment. But if you don't want to do that, what's the alternative? If you don't like research-based knowledge, you can try ignorance. And you can see where you will progress. So at this age, this old guy in Stockholm at that time is investing so much on new knowledge or seeking knowledge. So seeking knowledge should never be something that we should hesitate, whatever age you belong to. So I had the fortune to be invited for the Nobel prize ceremony and the Nobel banquet. You have to wear some kind of a funny costume called penguin tail. So from on the front it will just above the waist, on the back it will go all the way to the back of your knee. You know? So that's a very funny way to be pictured for yourself. And this is where the Nobel award ceremony happens in concert hall. This is where the inside of the concert hall, the royal family sits here. The emblem N is sitting here. This is where the Nobel laureates are seated. They'll have to come and stand here, and the king will take few steps forward, stand here. He'll give the prize and he will face the audience and thank the audience. He should not show his back to the king. He should walk back few steps to his chair, and the king will go back to his. And between each announcements, the secretary of the committee or chairman of the committee will come and make an announcement of the winner and what they have done. And of course, there will be a music played by the music group between each announcements. So this is how the announcement is made on the first Monday of October. This is Thomas Perlman. I had invited him to be our chief guest for the next convocation. He has accepted it. I only hope that the travel restrictions and pandemic restrictions don't come in the way. If that doesn't, maybe we can have him and interact with him. This is where he is announcing the prize at Nobel Forum. This is how the Nobel lecture is given inside the Aula Medica. And these are the two smart ladies who handles everything from the time they're sending out the nomination, receiving the nomination, putting them all together. And these two ladies do everything in the Nobel office. And the president of Karolinska Institute will host a reception to the laureates. And you get invitations like this, and usually get invitation every year. Sometimes it will be like a marriage reception, you know. So there will be a lot of people, you need to say hello to a lot of people, and you will have to mingle. That's the most important thing. At the Nobel Foundation, this is the most important room. He is the Secretary General of the Nobel Prize Foundation. And this is my favorite laureate, Rolf Zinkernagel, who is sitting in the end of the table after he won the prize. And I had been very instrumental in trying to get the Nobel lecture series to India. And this is Professor Vijay Raghavan, who is now the principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister. And the Department of Biotechnology, at the time was the Secretary of the Department of Biotechnology. So we had had a lot of discussions with the help of the India's ambassador. So we signed an agreement, and every year, because last year we had the pandemic, this year we have the pandemic, we did not have the Nobel lecture series. Otherwise, the Nobel laureates will come and hold the meeting. After the symposium is over, they are divided into batches of 2 and sent to various universities for the simple purpose that they will interact with the students to motivate them. Touch them, you can feel them, you can shake hands with them, and you can feel, when he can get the Nobel Prize, why can't I? That is the purpose of doing all these things. So this is a picture that I prize this picture. This is in 2001 when they had the Nobel Centennial at Karolinska Institute. All the living Nobel laureates were invited. Those who have died, of course, they cannot come. All those who had won the prizes in the past, who are in the world somewhere, they were all invited and brought back. This is Rolf Zinkernagel and Peter Doherty. And our own department, Bioscience department, is talking to his Doherty Institute for a collaboration. Can anybody recognize this guy? Such a diminutive guy from Cambridge University. His name is Cesar Milstein. He was the discoverer of monoclonal antibodies. It's such a common thing nowadays. And he is there, and Rolf was very kind to have a photograph taken with me. So this is the prize that is given, and you can have a look at the replica of the medal with Raju. Now, I do not know how we are doing by time. What I thought was maybe I can take up the Mahatma Gandhi at another time. How are you doing? Because we have to attend the body that has come from Whitefield Hospital. I'll quickly go through and end the slide. I'll talk to you about Mahatma Gandhi and why he did not get the prize. Okay, another time. So the Nobel Prize announcements are going to happen from 4th to 11th of October. The Medicine Prize, Physics Prize, Chemistry Prize, and I can nominate for all of these prizes. I'm only hoping that I could nominate people from our institute. If we have a nomination paper sent to, say, Rockefeller University, the Vice-Chancellor will not nominate somebody from Stanford University or Harvard University. They will nominate only people from their own university. Rockefeller University is the only university that's got the maximum number of Nobel Prizes. So I'm hoping that I could nominate somebody for physics and somebody for chemistry, somebody for literature. And I find there are bright people. I don't know what is missing to make them world class. I do not know, but at least hope that the categories in which we can go and fight is a peace prize. Maybe Swami is very kind, and I want to motivate more and more our director, Raghavendra Raju, to chase the economics prize. So this is something that you should know. There are some anecdotes that I will share. Nobel Museum, all the artifacts in this museum were donated by the Nobel laureates. Okay, and where they have all the exhibits. I do not know whether you can see, there is a cycle here that is put on some kind of a wooden thing and tied to the wall. You know what that cycle is? That's the cycle Amritya Sen used while he was at Shantiniketan. And they also have the black slate from Tagore in which he wrote the Gitanjali. Okay, and there are a lot of replicas. Some of the people who won the literature prize had donated the typewriter in which they used to type the manuscript or the book that they had published. And this is the cafeteria, and you can see a lot of people are sitting in the chairs. When there is nobody there, you should look under the chair. When you turn the chair upside down, each chair has got a signature of each Nobel laureate who has won the prize. So this is a unique place. So when you go to the cafeteria, you should not be kneeling down and looking at the chair. But you can lift the chair and see what's at the bottom, which Nobel laureate signature you have picked up. So this is an interesting thing. And the Nobel Museum is something very important place to go. And this is what I was telling about. Ulcer Tales. This is a comic cartoon which depicted how Barry Marshall took the concoction of broth with the culture of Helicobacter pylori. How we ate it, he said it's the most stinking thing. It tastes like a swamp water, you know. Then he got very sick, and this guy thought he was done the craziest thing because he could have died. And he had donated these cartoons of the story of how he won the prize to the Nobel Museum. So all the things that have been contributed to the Nobel Museum from the collections of various Nobel laureates are all in this book called Cultures of Creativity. Maybe I can bring this book and circulate it to people here. So each page is about one Nobel laureate and the exhibit that they have shared to the Nobel Museum, and it is something phenomenal. I mean, it's quite inspirational. So with this, I thank you very much for your time. Another time I'll try to take up and talk about Gandhi, and there are a lot of stories, a lot of things that we can discuss. But at the end of the day, all I wanted you to think is believe in yourself. You are very good, you are very smart, but circumstances might be different for different set of people. And when all things converge, that's when you excel. And you all have the potential. When Capecci was 5 years old, would he have thought that he would have achieved a glory? Or when Frances Arnold was a taxi driver who could have imagined that she could win a Nobel Prize at some time point. So anything can happen. There are also a lot of people who won big discoveries but never won the prize because they died too early. So believe in yourself, believe in Bhagwan, because that's where Bhagwan comes to get your circumstances right. And of course, we need good leadership. And I'm trying my best to encourage all of you. Hopefully, we can all succeed. Thank you.
Invoking Bhagwan's blessings. on behalf of all the faculty members and research scholars, we would like to express our heartfelt thanks to Professor Sanjeevi Carani for sharing with us the insider's view of nomination and selection process of a very prestigious award, the Nobel Prize. Sir brought out very important aspects that goes in winning this most sought after and respected award in the global arena. Be it passion and tenacity for research, invention, belief in oneself, the leadership support, sacrifice from the family members, and many more such aspects, all for the singular purpose, what can bring greatest benefit for mankind. Your continuous motivation and support means a lot for this research fraternity. Thank you for sharing all the wonderful, heart-touching anecdotes. Indeed, subtlest matters of the intellect can be grasped only if the heart is refined and pure enough to receive it. Thank you, sir, for the wonderful talk. We look forward for many such opportunities. Sai Ram.
ईशहरे शशिवदना श्रीकरा सर्वप्राणपते स्वामी सर्वप्राणपते आश्रितकल्पलतिका आश्रितकल्पलतिका आपद्बान्धवा ॐ जय जगदीश हरे। मातपिता गुरुदैवमु मरियन्तयु नीवे स्वामी मरियन्तयु नीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्राशयन ॐ जय जगदीश हरे। ओंकार रूप ओजस्वी ओ साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगल हारति अंदुको मंगल हारति अंदुको मंदर गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे। नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण नारायण ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा। नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण नारायण ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा। नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण नारायण ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम सत्यनारायण नारायण ओम ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा। ओम शांति शांति शांति। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
सहना भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु सवीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै सहना